First of all, I can't even imagine what you went through or are still going through, because I know you never get over it with the loss of your son, but you've used it to motivate you and empower you to step into other areas.
My technology career was very focused on higher education. I used to facilitate for the University of Phoenix. You know, of course, we had end user training and things like that.
You know, you were blessed to be able to have those opportunities, but then God know that it would be too much and then you have to leave. So how everything is just so aligned.
Welcome to the Nurse Boss Shift. It's your girl, Dr. Kiana Jones.
Crystal P, the beauty and P.
And we are live and on set in ATL with the ATL native, because we've been interviewing and talking to people and they haven't really been from ATL.
Right.
But with the native, Sheila Michelle, owner of Precis Screening. Sheila, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kiana and Crystal.
We are so glad to have you on here, and we want to talk, of course, all things business. You know, we always talk about who our market is, which is mostly nurses who are aspiring or current entrepreneurs. And so I want you to, if you could, just tell them a little bit about your background before we dive into the actual business side of things.
Absolutely. So I'm Sheila Michelle Foye, and I'm commonly known as Michelle. You can follow me at I am Sheila Michelle on Instagram. So as mentioned, I am a native Atlantan. I'm from right here, but I haven't always lived here. I've journeyed to North Carolina, to Oregon, and to Florida following my technology career in healthcare. So I'm on the other side. So I was the one that made sure y'all got paid. Made sure the vendors got paid. Application called PeopleSoft HR and financials, working also with modules recruiting. I was responsible for the talent acquisition module as well, making sure that we could recruit the doctors and the nurses and all.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And so how long have you been in the space of, would it be considered tech or?
Yeah. So my technology career, I'm about to date myself. So my technology career actually spans 25 years.
Okay.
But 5 years ago, I've had my own company since 2011.
Okay.
And I used that company to be an independent technology consultant.
Okay.
But 5 years ago, I would say I truly became an entrepreneur, because prior to that, you know, people were really checking for me. So it wasn't like entrepreneurship where we checking for people. You know, it was very different. So 5 years ago, I began Precis Screening, and it is an occupational health company. So we provide drug testing. We work with nurse practitioners and other chiropractors, even to provide physicals to get people to work. You know, think about your truck drivers and also think about nurses during the pandemic. But that line of work has other functions attached to it. So think background checks and fingerprinting and your I-9 automation, and, you know, think other forms of drug testing. So, you know, substance abuse, people who may be struggling, people who may want to adopt. So it really is a wide array of services. I was literally just thinking drug testing, and I had no idea that I would also be introduced to the transportation market and to the employer services market.
I find that just after interviewing and being in rooms with entrepreneurs, regardless if they're in healthcare or not, we tend to have the same fundamental beliefs, like our wants, our desires, right? So I want to ask you, did you always know you want to be an entrepreneur? Was it like, as you were working in tech, you just saw space for you that you would be fulfilling some kind of void? How did you navigate to like, okay, I'm going to launch my own screening company? How did you?
Right. So I would say God knew what he wanted. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
Right? You know, and what I mean by that is my technology career was very focused on higher education. I used to facilitate for the University of Phoenix. You know, of course, we had end user training and things like that. So higher ed as well as healthcare. And all along, he knew that my son would be murdered and that I would be so full of grief that normal corporate bureaucracy would be too much for me, right? Yeah. And I would go into this drug test center and I would say, whoa, this looks linear. This looks like something that I could do. And he put that vision in me at that time that, hey, you're going to help save families.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to help get people to work. You're going to help people, you know, change the trajectory of their careers. You know, all of that was literally a flash. He knew all those things. So it makes it very easy for us to operate our Launch Your Lab program, where we help aspiring and serial entrepreneurs get into healthcare and transportation through drug testing and having clinical and collection labs, because I already had some aspect of healthcare and education.
Yeah. First of all, I knew about because I saw you at the event that we were both at and both spoke at, and your story was just so compelling to me about like just realizing that everything God does for us he already knows what we're going to go through, what we're going to experience, and he puts us in situations to be prepared like for it, or at least to use the tools around us to get through it.
Yeah.
So first of all, I can't even imagine what you went through or are still going through, because I know you never get over it with the loss of your son, but you've used it to motivate you and empower you to step into other areas.
Yeah.
And so I don't even know. Do you have a question?
I know, me too. I was just loving the fact how you said that, you know, you were blessed to be able to have those opportunities, but then God know that it would be too much and then you have to leave. So how everything is just so aligned for the perfect timing under non-perfect circumstances.
Yeah.
So you went into the lab and you said you got inspired that
I mean,
could do this.
and even outside of that, because I've always been a bit creative. You know what I mean? Like I was walking this morning, just quick story. I was walking this morning. I said, girl, you like being an underdog. Like you like being an underdog so much that you just create drama for yourself sometimes. Just so, you know, because when, as an underdog, like, I love the come up of it. Do you know what I mean? But we have to watch that we're not self-sabotaging and repeating that it's okay to be on top and go to the top. You don't have to, you don't get to the top just from the bottom. You can get to the top from top, right? And so my parents were, you know, Kiana knows this story. My parents were 14 and 16. I was conceived in a children's home, Georgia Baptist in Palmetto, Georgia. You know, they weren't looking to have a baby. It became more like a little sister that I don't even really want to be bothered with. And that really was a trajectory of my life. You know, I was in children's homes and living with friends and family. And so all of those things. And so coping for me was writing down my goals and writing down my dreams and writing down some other life than the life that I was living. So I had that underneath me. And then going to corporate America, I would always outgrow my space pretty quickly, but I didn't know how to get to another space. It was just like, I know this seat is too small. How do I get to the next thing, right? And so it was that. And then when DJ was killed, my son is DJ. When DJ was killed, I had only been married not even a year. So my husband and I got married a little later in life. I was 41. You know, he was whatever age he was when and so it was like, okay, well, now I had one grandchild, and it was like, okay, we want to start thinking about this next segment of life. So you get into the facets of personal freedom, you know, time freedom, relationship freedom, right? Financial freedom and purpose freedom. And I didn't know that those were the things that I was dealing with at that time, but that's what I was in search of. And it was my new marriage, right? My tragedy with my son, my own upbringing, and then just what goes on somebody else's job. And I've always said this: if you're going to get the check, don't complain.
Well,
yeah.
I'm sorry, this is the first time I was speechless. I'm still processing, because it's really, I think, and this could be wrong. Tell me what you think. Some people, when we are making excuses, we hear someone's story, and then we also make the excuse that, well, I don't have that kind of story. Like, that's that's tragic, right? And I've had tragedy, and we all have tragedy. And it's like, how do you navigate, but I want to do this thing, but I don't feel like I have enough, like, I haven't had enough life experience. I don't have that story to make people still not have words. Like I don't have that. I would love to know what your perspective is. I know because you work with, and we'll talk about what you actually do and how you help nurses and stuff, but and all people. But tell me what, when you encounter that, or have you ever, and what's your response to that?
Yeah. Ken, I'm so glad you asked that question because so I started my drug testing center, and then, you know, about a year, I was like, okay, God, I'm gonna do this. But you know how we do with God. We like, I got one foot in and one foot out. I'm gonna do this for 18 months. And then if it ain't working, then whatever. And so right at that 18-month mark is when I got into coaching.
Yeah.
Right. And at that point, all I'm thinking of is DJ's story, right? This is 2020. And all I'm thinking is, well, for $99, I'm going to teach you how to become a DOT specimen collector. I'm going to give you the lab names. I'm going to give you the supply list, and you can go for it and you can find something else to do. So you're not shot in the back of the head and you don't die with $102.50 in your pocket because you know you have other options, right? I'm just like, how do I make my son's life meaningful? I know who DJ was, you know, I know he was great. I know he was this, but how do I make his life meaningful? How do, you know, I help other people? But that was 2020. In 2022, when I had my first class of lunch or lab, like so it's now like a class, you graduate your class of 2022. God said, girl, this ain't about you and DJ. This is about the people that I sent to that room. And it's about what they need. It's about what Crystal needs, and it's about what Kiana needs. That was just the gas for you to put in the car to get to the room to talk to them. Yeah. And so then I had to begin to restructure my language to be, it's not everybody doesn't have this tragedy. This is what keeps me going, right? Yeah. In 2 weeks, this is how divine God is. In 2 weeks, 14 days from now, it will be 8 years since DJ was killed. God always does these types of things to get the word out, his word out that he really wants. So whenever I'm invited, and thank you so much, I always know that it is divine. Do you know what I mean? It is divine. It's not about my commercial call to action. It's about God's divine call to action. And so when I had that class of 2022, he was like, girl, this ain't about you. This is about, you need to go in that room. You need to identify what people in that room need, and you need to give them that. Launching a lab is just, it's just a catalyst for people to launch into their purpose. So when I'm working with nurses or whomever it is I'm working with, it's like, okay, what is your vision for your life? You don't even have to have a story. Maybe you came from a great family. You had mom and dad. You went to whatever college, you married your high school sweetheart. Like maybe you don't have the drama, but so then what is your life's vision? So that's how I would answer that question.
I love that too, because I get that too, because I have a story. So when I'm telling mine, and I've had people in my DM, well, I went to a good school. My parents like all worked and I lived in middle class. And I'm like, so you live, right? If you are alive, you got a story. Now, maybe yours might not be as traumatic as mine or whatever, but you got a story. You've experienced some kind of obstacle. I don't care what, if you want to go through the story. But now I say, well, what do you want your life to look like is the real question. And a lot of times you say money, but we all know that's very superficial. This is not about money. It's about what it brings when you're able to leverage it. It's not just about money. So having those deep conversations. So what you're telling me is that you're kind of going, you're still helping them launch and you still have the company and you're coaching, but you're focused on the root and not just like, all right, and that's what I say too all the time in the boot camp. I'm like, listen, I can give you the list here. Go do this here. Get this. But it's about what's in here and what you're anchored to that's deeper than the thing that you say you want. Yeah. It's never, this exercise I give my students called 7 Levels Deep. You guys can look it up. It's online. It's by Joe Stunt. And it really gets you to your why. So you continue to ask why. You start out like, okay, why do you want to launch a lab? Is it a screening lab?
Yeah, it's like we say launch a lab. So whether they do drug testing or whether they do collection lab or they do clinical lab. Yeah.
Okay, so you ask them why and they'll say, because I'm burnt out or I want to make more money. Exactly. And you continue to ask why. Well, why do you want to make more money? Well, why do this? And every single time I've done this with hundreds now that I've come through my program, when they get to their core, it has something to do with either a trauma they experienced growing up, fear of death, like something way deeper, or leaving here and not having been the person that God has, designed to be. So it's always deeper. So it sounds like to me what you're doing is like, yeah, I'm helping you. And it's crazy to say, it's like, yes, it's important, but like, what do you want? Like that is more important than launching any business anywhere. I don't care what it is.
Exactly.
And how does it feel when you're doing that, working with nurses? Do you feel like, and we're generalizing, y'all, so don't come for us. But generally speaking, though, is it more difficult? Is it easier? Are they more in a box than like narrow-minded? And I'm saying that because that's my experience. I feel like people who are like in healthcare, we've been raised from orientation to just focus on being an employee. So that takes a lot of unlearning. But have you experienced that? And if not, what has been yours?
Yep. So I do think it's important to say that my godmother was an LPN and my aunt is an RN. And that is actually kind of where the lab side of my drug testing, that's kind of where that part, the actual lab, that's how the two came. So I want to honor that. I personally couldn't be a nurse because I just wasn't strong enough in math and science. But I came up with nurses being superheroes. And it was a thing. It was an honor. Like, I was like, oh, they're a nurse, Now I'm about to flip the podcast upside down. So y'all just strap in. So it's been interesting because I'm like, okay, look at God. I didn't believe that I could become a nurse because of A, B, and C, but you have me serving nurses, right? And I've been shocked at some of the things that, I find. I've worked with amazing women. I mean, I feel like anybody that pays me is amazing. I ask God to send me clients. It doesn't always work out. It doesn't mean they're not amazing, and it definitely doesn't mean I'm not amazing. So I want to start with that. But I think that there's a lot of insecurity, and I'm always shocked by that because it's like, girl, you save lives. Like, who can touch you? Like, there's a lot of insecurity. There's a lot of distrust. There's a lot of uncertainty, and it can become a lot to deal with, which is one of the reasons why this is my last year coaching.
What? Y'all done ran.
This is my last year coaching. My business model I've been pivoting for some time now. It's another podcast. Hopefully y'all will invite me back. But because I realize that like there are teachers who want to work with kindergartners, and there are teachers who want to work with band students, and there are teachers who want to work with the seniors, right? And so I know that I need to work with a certain persona in order for them to get value quickly, in order for me to get value quickly. So I think working with nurses has been great from the standpoint because I know that I have popped the top, and it's like, we're not going to play about this stuff. Like, we're going to have a real conversation. You ain't going to be able to say that nobody ain't tell you the truth. You know what I mean? But that's what I have found. And it's kind of been shocking, to be honest with you.
Not for me. It definitely is what I see too as well in my mentorship. And to the point where very much so like you, Crystal, how many times do I say it? I'm like, I'm done. Yeah. Because it is such a battle. And I always try to think and put myself where I was, but I was like, I didn't have time to think about why I could. Like, I had a kid that I had to succeed for. So my life, I guess, has always been, I feel like God, they say he gives the strongest ones, he give the most work. And baby, he gave me work.
You're the strongest.
Okay, still give me work, right? But through that, I have just kind of grown into this, like, I'm going to do it. Like, okay, I'm not going to even ask for permission. I'm just going to figure it out if it's something that I want. But I feel like a lot of nurses, and y'all gonna be mad at me for this, but y'all do be caught up. And I say that, not that we don't work hard. No, it's just that we've been like kind of held throughout our whole journey. Like they had the policies and procedures for us. Right. All we had to do was go to school and pass the test, and not all, because that was hard. I know it. But I'm just saying we had to pass that test, and then we work, and then they tell us everything to do. But what we don't, and I feel like as nurses, where we miss out is that you can do it yourself. You just got to do the hard part, and you don't want to do that. So you're like, oh, well, I got a job. Like, I'm making good money. It's like, but you could be making so much more. Like, and you're worth more, and you can have more autonomy over your life. And I think that is why we're insecure, because we don't have the confidence, because we've been handheld through a lot of this. And when it gets hard, we retreat, because we can always pick up a shift. So soon as I launch my lab, collab with you, Sheila, and then it doesn't work after 30 days, I can go pick up a shit. Like, Shaka should have been did this.
Right.
Like, I could, but it's like, no, you don't understand. You're planting seeds. And your roots are forming. You're not able to reap the benefit of fruit yet, and you won't even give it the chance because it's been 90 days and you have already given up on yourself and your dreams and everything. It's like, I always say, what I say, Crystal, I say it's like going back to a bad relationship. It's like you know he gonna be there and you know how you gonna get treated, but you leave and then you get back in it and you're like, damn, I should have stayed out. Like, I was gone. Why did I put myself back in it? And I think that is really the psychology of what most nurses experience, and how to get out of that really is about doing the work continuously. Like, you never stop working. Do you feel like you stop working on yourself? Like, you're always working on yourself, right? As you are growing and evolving, you said your business model is changing. It's work, and all work works, even sometimes when it does not feel good. And I think nurses in particular, we just could do better at just stepping out into who we really are, because it's not going to be handed to you. This part is not handed. The being a worker, that's handed to you. Like, here you go. This is how you do it. Being an entrepreneur, it's not handed to you. It's almost not mentioned in nursing school. What would you say, Chris?
Yeah, I was just thinking of, I always think about this, and is it a personality thing? Absolutely, as you were talking about nurses, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely why. Because even when we have to pass the test, we still have the blueprint for the test.
Yeah.
And in entrepreneurship, you don't. But then it becomes because me, and going back to when you were talking about people not having a story, I told you, Kiana, when we first started working together, I don't feel like I have this big grand story. But what turned it around for me is also what you mentioned about doing it for the person who needs me. Like, they need you to come in this room to change their life. So that's where my story comes from. And then I can supplement, my journey of entrepreneurship to have my story. So I don't know if it's just, we are spoiled because we can't go back and get that shift. But then it's like, but what about those of us who don't have, a young child to take care of, but we still know that if that person can do it with less experience, then why can't I? So I'm going to do it. But then there's those who hear the same thing and they just give up easily. So I don't know if it's like a personality or it's a mindset, obviously.
It's definitely mindset. I think personality has its place, but my thing is, maybe it's personality, because I've always been a go-getter.
That's right.
But two, even still, when things didn't go my way and I wanted to give up, I just couldn't give up on my future self. Like, I would always think about if I was old and like I was scared and didn't do something. Like, then what? Like, we all leaving here. So like, I definitely don't want to live here with regret. So that's always been my kind of like what has guided me to stick it out or make changes or whatever. So, okay, my one question I do want to ask before we go to the next part is it our fault you changing your business?
Yeah, I was going to say, is it the nurse that makes that?
It's not literally the nurses, just for the record. Okay, it's not literally the nurse. Okay. So, and I want to piggyback on what you and Crystal were just saying. So I think that, there's entrepreneurship in general. So some of these things are just characteristic of people who shouldn't be an entrepreneur. And so it's like the collective really need to do a better job of helping people understand how to obtain that purpose, time, financial, freedom that they want. Is not entrepreneurship is not the answer for everybody. So there are some things that's just characteristic of all that. Then honestly, there are things that I just believe that we struggle with as Black people, that really is like slavery type stuff that we are still dealing with. Then there's the thing about us as women. Yeah. And then you can start to then you've got, nurses is a group of folks, right? And so there are certain things, I think, when it comes to nurses, I have just always, once I kind of started seeing a common thread, like it took a minute for me to even realize that I was serving nurses. Do you understand what I'm saying? But once I realized, I asked my aunt to audit my program. I said, I want you to audit my program. I want to make sure things are like in nurse speak. I want to make, blah, 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 blah. So she did that, and, all was well. And it still wasn't working the way that I really, because I want people to win. Girl, if you ain't winning, like, you can't even sit next to me. I only sit next to winners. And I mean, that's relative, but we all can win, right? And so then it just kind of became, this is just the state of some of us right now. And so I'm going back to consulting. I'm going back to people who can write big checks, and there's not this emotional attachment as to whether you make it or not. Now, now
I
here
think you just mentored me, right?
I'm like, there's our answer, Kia.
Right. I've
Now-
really been stuck.
and we can talk about these government contracts offline. So what I'm saying is, it's not that I don't care about my government clients, or not that I don't care about my corporate client, but it's not the same as Crystal or Kiana. It's a totally different thing when Crystal and Kiana give me money and they don't execute.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
It's a
I
totally
know
different
exactly
feeling.
what you mean.
And I don't like it. I don't like the gaslighting. I don't like the psycho. I just don't care. I just don't think that is healthy. Me personally and professionally. So I think that there is a common thread for nurses, but no, it's not just nurses. So here's the thing. If you are somebody and you don't think that you can live the life that you deserve to have, or, or that let's start with that God wants you to have, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And I can't take up space with that. And you will get there. I'm going to see you when you get there.
Right.
Because we really are that average of the people that we are around. Right? So people pay all this money to go to these masterminds. If you got the right circle, you can mastermind for free.
So she has a speechless too.
And I was just talking about earlier, just about being a socket too. And I get drained. That's why sometimes I have to step away.
Yeah.
Because I am, and my analogy that I use all the time is like, I'm on an island sipping, whatever I love to drink, coconut rum with my blue water, and you in the thunderstorm, and I'm trying to pull you over here. So I come out of my good place to pull you in this thunderstorm, and you fighting and kicking and screaming, and you won't come because you don't trust for whatever reason. It's a lot of reasons. Like you said, trauma, upbringing, whatever, but you don't trust, and I have to fight with you. And at some point, I get tired. Right. And so people don't talk about, especially coaches who care and mentors who actually care. There is a difference. Now, there is those that you pay them, but you don't even get to talk. Right. Like you don't get them live at all. And I've experienced that too. But the people who do really, truly care and are connected to your growth, it drains you. And I totally understand where you're coming from with that, because I'll be feeling drained.
Because you're attached to them.
I'm emotionally attached.
Y'all are attached to them, so you got to think about it. For lack of a better term, it's gonna sound hard. It's dead weight.
Yeah.
You have to drop the dead weight. You will get there. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't want nobody, because I'm not with the gaslighting. Okay. But I'm just saying, right? I've been dead weight. Yeah. Every day I have to check myself and make sure I'm not being dead. I'm not actively being dead weight to my children, to my friends, to my husband. But I also want to go back to something y'all were saying, which was about the work that we have to do on ourselves. I have a couple of mentorships that I'm involved with off social media, like the National Black MBA and the National Minority Supplier Development Council. And I met with a young woman. I'm going to say she may have been Indian or something, right? So she may have been Indian. She just had received a Pan Asian, award for the performance of her company. And, we met for the first time. I met her at a lunch. We had lunch together yesterday, and she's like, oh, we're ready for the company to scale, and we're just trying to get our arms around, like, what recommendations do you have? Girl, start with yourself, because you have to make the decision that the company is going to scale. And then once you make that decision, then people will start to follow the leader, right? So
when the student shows up, teacher will appear.
Exactly. So you have to make sure you're drinking your water, minding your business, that you are, and I even, this is probably not the time to talk about Donald Trump. I told you I was going to turn the podcast upside down, but I listened to his book, one of them, I can't recall, some time ago. Maybe he had a ghostwriter, but whatever. It was a good book. Yeah. And the amount of time that he spent, or they say he spends, working on himself. Yeah. Crazy and blessed as he is, this probably was back in the day, right? Yeah. Not now. Okay. Yeah. You have to work on yourself. Yes. You have to work on yourself. And so when you pay somebody for a coaching program or whatever, you pay somebody, then that's just you not working on yourself. Like, you can't run from the work. The work is gonna be, it's gonna be there. So I just really encourage people. It's not a matter of, and this is also what I shared with the young lady. Life is not going to give you what you deserve. Life is not going to give you what you want. It's going to give you what you ask for and what you take action on.
What you work for. Yeah.
And that's that.
I agree.
And I always say that I feel entrepreneurship teaches you so much about yourself because you will start to find those gaps, but it's almost in an emergent situation. Like, I don't know where all the money goes. I probably need to work on my financial issues. So I think as being an employee and being a nurse, having a job, those things don't come up, right? They may come up every now and then. You're blowing your check, but you can make, work and make another shift. So I think entrepreneurship shows you those things. But I think as a newbie outside of it, you don't know that until you get into entrepreneurship. So that's why it is important to work on yourself, but I don't think people know that or connect the dots of things they need to work on. But that is so true. You should, and now I say, look at your finances, because we have nurses who come in our program, they're working 7 days a week. Well, how are you going to launch your business?
Get you a book. You gotta get you a bookkeeper. You gotta get you a CPA. You gotta get you a business attorney.
All those.
I mean, the thing to me is that I feel like for all of the nurses who are watching this podcast, first thing is decide if you should even be an entrepreneur. It's not the only way to get to that time freedom, purpose freedom, financial freedom, relationship freedom. Book a consult with, Kiana, Crystal, and
or anyone.
And book it. This your podcast. Book it with them. Let's be clear. Book it with them, and get the consult to really think: what can I monetize? How can I monetize? Right. So that's one. And then just get the personal discipline and get you some frameworks. Like, this is not, people think, oh, okay, well, what's the secret to success? Girl, you the secret.
You the sauce. You the sauce. Yeah, I agree. I think, when you're doing the work, whether you should be an entrepreneur or not will be revealed. But I think people don't want to do the work. You think nothing's wrong.
They won't do that.
They don't think nothing. They don't think they do
Dude, I just need you to show me how to make this money. Right. That's all I need you. But no, you
different
have to
than
be
nursing
the person
school.
deserving of the money. Like, you have to be the person, and that's why people who win the lottery, they get broke because they didn't become they won it. They wasn't ready. Like, all those triumphs and challenges you go through as you continue this journey. If you decide to be an entrepreneur, is preparing you. It's preparation. And everyone's journey is different. It might take you a year. It might take you 5 years. It might take you 10 years. How committed are you? And that's going to be tested as well. So I totally agree with you. I think it's sexy for people. And as much as people who are being honest and transparent can say it's hard, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. People think you playing. Like, it really is. Like, you really have to want
it. It's like childbirth and marriage. It's like, people, you know what I mean? People, they don't tell you what's up. They don't tell you the real deal. Entrepreneurship, marriage, and childbirth.
Baby, this is
it's hard.
It's hard. But what I found, and I would love for you to give us some tips of like your evolution too, like some of your big principles that you've developed as you've grown as an entrepreneur. For me, one of mine is I'm not attached to the money. Money is a tool, and I use it as such. I don't get, of course, if my bank gets super low, I'm nervous, but not nervous because of the money, nervous because I need bills to be paid. Right? But I'm not attached to it. I leverage it, I barter with it, and that's what it's supposed to be. I have no emotional attachment. I just know that I need it for the life that I want to live, to take my family on trips, to make sure we got a roof over our head. So that's how I see it. I detach myself from it. And that's a principle that was it was something that I learned because it wasn't taught to me. I was taught money don't grow on trees, you work hard, you got this. That's how I was taught. So I had to do a lot of unlearning and therapy and mindset coach. I had a mindset coach to help me not care about like money per se, right? I was the one, like I had my Maserati brand spanking new 2018. I'm feeling good. When my mindset started to change about money, my 2007 Lexus looked real good. Why? Because I was spending over $30,000 a year on a freaking car.
I know, I got one too, girl. Tell me about it.
I was like, this could have went in I just started looking at things different. And then I'm like, and not to, I would get one too if I wanted one, whatever, but so nothing wrong with it. But I'm just saying, when I started to look at money differently and use it as a tool and detach myself, I started to look at what did I want to invest it on. If I say I'm doing this for my kids, generational wealth, well, shouldn't I be putting it towards that? If that's what I say I want, what am I leaving to them? They don't want a damn med spa. Like, so I had to really learn a principle that I take with me that helps me to keep going. Like, when I may be low, bam, I'm hiring a coach. Like, people, that's counterintuitive. It's like, well, my money is low, I'm not going to get a coach. Well, no, because I'm missing something I don't know. Right? So this person is going to help me with that. So what's a principle that you've taken away or you learned or that you've kind of adapted since you become an entrepreneur that's helped?
That I want to sell that Maserati and get me a bicycle. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, real conversation, because you don't, it's beautiful, God. We're not ungrateful.
Right.
But but it's like, yeah, absolutely. That is a great example. And that probably was affirmation for me. So thank you, Lord. Thanks for being God's vessel. So I would say certain principles that I have, mind you, I came to social media with a $99 course. It now was about $25,000 to cart out with me.
Yeah, period.
And I work on I strive to work with clients where it's a gift that keeps giving. I keep giving you, you keep giving me, we keep giving each other, meaning that, 25,000 is the initial, right? But my principles have gotten me to a place there are certain people, you can keep your money. Go on TikTok, find you that person for the 300, the 500, the 1,000, because this is a relationship. I want a relationship. I want to look forward to talking to you. I want to look forward to emailing you. I want to even maybe go to lunch with you, or maybe acknowledge, your life events that happen. I want that type of relationship. And so I say that money is an organic outcome. It's an organic outcome of us being in alignment, being doing and being what we're supposed to be doing and being. I don't act out of desperation. I say I don't care what happens. I will never act out of desperation. Right?
I get you.
Yeah. That is super, super important to me. And I mean, really just loving on myself, like looking a hot mess, and like, girl, I love you. You the bomb. You doing it, and my husband hugs me and he's amazing, but it ain't nothing like when I hug myself. And so I think really just understanding that, like, doubt and fear and depression, unless it's like clinical, to me, it's a form of hatred towards yourself. And so I don't hate myself. I love myself, right? And so I think that those are the things that really kind of keep me grounded. Yeah. And I always say that God is the star of the show and I'm the supporting cast. Yeah. And so that, it's been a lot of internal work. Yeah. If people are not aligned to my vision for my company, I don't need you 1 second longer.
No.
And I don't need me 1 second longer when I lose alignment.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I always say, I'm going to release you to your God-given destiny. Yeah. And that is fine. So I think it's about, people want abundance. The abundance is not going to come without the alignment. Yes. And I think that that's very, very, and you have to fight to stay at your essence. Yeah. People don't understand. We are in such a superficial world, to your point. You have to fight to stay authentic and genuine and pure-hearted. It's a struggle, and humble and grateful. So my principles really have more so to do with this kind of stuff, because I feel like if I get this right, then I can get the rest right. I run my day by a CEO schedule. There has to be personal development, professional development, research and development. There has to be planning. There has to be problem solving. Those things have to happen, even if it's 5 minutes each. So I do a lot of frameworks to also, I have a therapist. I have a financial coach. I'm in a lot of incubators and accelerators that actually don't cost any money. No, it's not quite the same, but I do things that keep me accountable. So I think you have to find out what will make you, got to find out what will make you tick. What makes me tick is if I know I got to show up somewhere. Girl, me getting here at 12:43 is amazing because I'm always late. But do you see what I'm saying? So it's I have to, it's you see Dr. Kiana Child, you can tell she don't play. She look like she gonna whoop you. She got that. You better not get out of line, but nicely though, right? Not scary, but she just got that. Girl, what? You're not here. That is so declasse of you. So it's your presence, right? The type of presence you have is I want to show up for her on time. I listened to y'all this morning. I listened to a couple of podcasts because another thing for me is listen, if you ask me to come, I was like, let me listen and see kind of what the vibe is.
Be prepared.
I got to show up for UMB 1000. So those are kind of things that I live by.
Crystal, what's your, before I ask you your principle, I do want to touch on something that I maybe people may have missed that you said. You said, you got to remember my first product was $97. And I'm going to say this, and I know people may feel away, but this is so true, you guys. A $97 client is totally different than a $10,000 client. A $97 client will run you low to the ground, under the ground, okay? And it's just a mindset thing. I feel when I have made 5-figure investments of myself, honestly, is when I showed up the most because of the investment. So when you said that, for me, the first thing I thought about was, ooh, I know they took you through it with that, because
I used to wake up, my girl, I would wake up, like I literally made $2,500 in 15 minutes. $99, but you are right. And they will, and we do, and y'all don't do that.
Yes.
If you are someone who shops on social media, like, don't do that. Just because you pay somebody, you don't own them. Like, you ain't doing the Waltons like that. Right. You're not doing Tarjay like that. Like, you don't,
I was just thinking we need an episode on how people need to act in coaching programs. Etiquette, how to get the most.
I have a book. I have a book called Becoming Coachable.
Becoming Coachable.
There you go.
Where is it at? So we can go ahead and put that right now.
Yeah, I'll say
that's very important.
Do you help them with like how to find a coach? Another thing we get is like how to find.
That's what becoming coachable is about. It's about helping you understand how to maximize your investment in coaching, as well as selecting the right coach and right coaching products and services. Yeah,
I love that.
And then I also have my book, Unbroken, that's going to be on Amazon, I hope, next week. So, and that's just about being resilient. It's about, just listen, this life is big. We got one, like, live it up, like, go for it and do it.
I love it. We'll have it in the show notes for you guys too, because by the time this is out, it should be released on Amazon. Awesome. So we'll put that in the show notes. Crystal, before we trying to wrap up, what is a principle that you now have as it pertains to entrepreneurship that you've developed, not one that you already have?
Yeah, definitely developed. I think just embracing the roller coaster ride is one of them, and not getting so because I would get freaked out to the point I would just freeze and do nothing versus trying to solve the problem. So I think I've really grown in always trying to solve the problem and not freak out when it comes, and to also just stop and pray, and then get aligned, and I might need to fast. That's become something that I do more regular now. So I think that just trusting God more, especially in this business, just knowing that He gave it to me. This is something He wanted me to do, or else He wouldn't have sent me on this path. So just trusting.
Girl, should I have your collection plate? I need it.
Listen, this sounds like if you want to get closer to God, become an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Be praying.
Yes.
You're going to be a praying soul, let me tell you.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. I love that one, because that makes me think about when you are focused on the problem versus not the solution, then you're giving that more energy, which is only going to make it grow. And a lot of times it's not even as big as we've made it.
Oh, that's me. I always think it's like this.
Once you get it over,
and then I'm like, that's all I have to do. Like, make a phone call. Wow. No. I should have did that a month ago.
Okay, Sheila, can you please, Sheila Michelle, I want to call you Sheila Michelle because that's on Instagram. Can you please tell everyone, what do you have coming out? Now we done told them that you shifting. Can they still start a
Yes. So
great business, by the way, for you nurses to start, because I always send her people. Yes. So this is a great business if you're in entrepreneurship or wanting to, and you don't know what you can do as a nurse.
Crystal's gonna start making sure they know, so they tell me so she can get her referrals.
I don't care. Just like,
by the way.
Okay.
Make sure. Okay. So I'm super excited. In 2023, I started pivoting. So I will still be hosting Lunch or Lab. It just will be on a different scale, right? So it really will be for someone who is serious. I think about like starting a franchise. I'm not going to call it a franchise, but it's going to be for the kind of like the franchise minded. So if you want a Lunch or Lab, I am your go-to. But I started tax lien investing.
Okay.
So I want to do affordable housing. So if you're interested, I have purchased 2 tax liens and I'm going through that process now. So I said real estate, and then also government contracts. So we won a $193,000 government contract. Yes, for drug testing, by the way. But the idea, y'all, is community well. So I won the contract, but I won it on behalf of my client. So that means that we both get paid, we both get past performance, and it's about making 1 + 1 = 1,000.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So if you're interested in government contracts, and there are tons of government contracts for nurses and healthcare providers. So don't even think about yourself. Think about who you know. Think about your network. You don't have to be the one doing the work, right? So government contracts, real estate, So I'm excited about that.
And so if they want to do so are you going to be teaching about this stuff too, or?
Well, I'm going to be consulting. Because another big lesson I learned with the teaching. It's so much we could talk about. And you probably experienced something. So the deal is the way that I came to Instagram was with my heart. I didn't come with my head. I came with my heart. And so I left myself vulnerable to a lot of things as it related to my my intellectual capital. So I won't be teaching, but you can contract with me as a consultant. So think agency done for you model is what I do.
I love that.
You'll still learn, but it's not, I'm not
holding your hand.
I love that. And that's going to free you up too, like, and weed out the people who are not serious. That's
what we want to do.
Because I don't even want you. I do that too. I'll be like, no, you're not my, I know you're not my person. Like, the way you even talking, you aren't ready for me. Like, go read some books on mindset and shift that. And then come to me, because I know they're going to be a headache for me. And I just don't want it.
Absolutely.
I don't want no parts of it. Okay, so what are your socials? What is your website? What are all the things?
Thank you. So I think the easiest way, because I do a lot of things, but I do things that are in alignment with, my capabilities. Just go to www.precis, Precis, brand, brand.com, www.precisbrand.com. And
www though, right?
www. See that preciseness? I be telling people that. I'm like, listen, y'all, it's just a drug test. It ain't nobody's gonna die. I promise you. It's okay. But yes, www.precisbrand.com.
And we'll have it in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the way you prefer them to reach out to you. Absolutely. But you are also on social. Do you?
Yeah, and you can follow me on Instagram at I am Sheila Michelle. I also have a YouTube. My podcast was season 1 and 2, which is I am Sheila Michelle. So
I see you doing a podcast too.
Thank you.
What is one, if you could give our listeners like a takeaway that could be something powerful or impactful that you have done or that you are doing that has really helped you? Now, remember, most of our listeners are aspiring or new entrepreneurs. So something that you could leave them with that they could actually do, like they could get off of this or from listening to this and go do. What would be that? It could be anything. It could be a book you recommend. It could be a coach. It could be a podcast, whatever. What would be something tangible?
I'm gonna do 1.5, because I heard, I overheard one guest and she was saying, piggyback on her, get small wins for yourself every day.
Ooh,
get small wins for yourself every day. It will boost you and really help you with the things that are hard, that make you freeze, because that happens to every last one of us, right?
I love that.
But also get a sheet of paper, draw a line down the middle. On the left-hand side, you're going to write, I am exceptional personally at, and list all of the things that you are exceptional at personally.
Okay.
On the right-hand side, I am exceptional professionally at, list all the things that you are exceptional at. And that will help you understand what you can monetize as a nurse.
Oh, that's good. That's real work y'all could do for real.
Yeah.
That's good. Any last words, Chris, before we?
No, I just enjoyed so much having you here in this conversation. We'll definitely have to do another one.
Yeah, I want to do another one on the consulting part too, what all you're doing, because I know government contracting is huge, and I know it's a missed opportunity. I know
you would kill it.
We're saying intimidated. I don't lie.
You would.
We need to talk about that often.
Yeah, we do need to talk about that.
But I'm intimidated because I don't know. I know nothing about it. So you know how it is. You talk yourself out of it because you don't know, instead of going at it, which is what I'm supposed to do. But anyway, we'll definitely do a part 2 then. I don't know. If you come to LA, we can do it in person.
Yeah, I'd love to come back. LA was like my most visited city last year. Crazy. Yeah. So shout out to my client in LA. They have their drug test center and lab. So, yeah. And then also filming First Ladies Afraid we had.
Y'all was in LA somewhere?
Yeah, we did. We did.
Okay,
So
we
I
definitely
come
we
see
need to
y'all.
connect too. Like I'm talking about just
Okay, awesome.
yeah.
Got a fatter for
Go
it.
Yeah.
have dinner, lunch, something.
I would love that. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. You have dropped some major gems. And
Great.
what I love, like I said, is it's relatable. It doesn't matter your profession. Like as women and women of color, like we go through these challenges, you guys, and just start to pull out in these podcasts the similarities that I know many of you guys have with our guests as well as us, but they tired of us probably. So I guess, and just know what's possible for you, but you definitely have to do the work and the internal work as well. So you guys, we are going to go ahead and conclude here. As always, don't be stingy. Don't gatekeep. Make sure you share this podcast. All of Sheila Michelle's information is going to be in the show notes. Give us some comments say it was good, something. Y'all be tripping. They do not be commenting enough for me. Like, we need to know if we're doing the right thing or not. We see the downloads, but tell us what y'all want to see. So until next time, you guys, bye. Bye.